So what are we all here for? We're here to solve all the problems that you just heard Peter talk about, right? And we have the ability to do that. I mean, we have so much at our fingertips that's going to enable us to really jump on top of a lot of these issues. So as we think about business transformation, over the past few years, industry pundits, the press, and many of us in the industry have been shouting the accolades of digital transformation, right? This isn't the first time you've heard it here today. But is it all it's cracked up to be? Is it really helping us deal with issues? Well, global transformations is still top of mind for many business leaders. There are still challenges. They put a significant effort into these projects to driving success, but the results have really fallen short of expectations. In many cases, the anticipated benefits have not been realized. Companies have only captured 31% of the expected revenue lift, according to an HBR study. And they're only realizing 25% of the expected cost savings from their efforts. That's not very good. Those statistics are really disappointing. But it's not the end of the story. That's the great news. There are key digital transformation efforts that are really driving significant outcomes, where companies are reimagining and leveraging digital technologies to achieve really significant outcomes. Initiatives like delivering hard numbers on CO2, improving efficiency and productivity, driving faster collaborations between teams, transforming supply chain management. You just heard about some of that from Peter, and innovating faster. Those are all key digital initiatives that are driving successful outcomes. And by concurrently matching those initiatives with changing business processes, you can fully leverage digital technologies, and companies are achieving the revenue gains that they hope for. Digital transformation is becoming more important than ever, helping companies move beyond just optimizing their business to really transforming it. Year in and year out, companies are faced with the traditional business risks, driving them to change how they operate. Peter mentioned a lot of the risks that we face: inflation, geopolitical instability, supply chain impacts, and more recently, the challenging issue of labor shortages. That's going to hit us in spades very soon. We faced variations on these for years. For those of you who were here last year, Rob Lidster did a really good job of articulating some of them. Supply chains were impacted when the Suez Canal was blocked. A guy couldn't drive his boat across the channel. There were chip shortages, when there are container shortages, and labor shortages in the ports to offload the containers. And of course, the most significant supply chain impact was from COVID. So in response to these never-ending risk drivers, that's how we think of them, companies have really continued to adjust how they work, making incremental reactive changes to optimize their response to each risk as it came along. But COVID put a laser focus on how incremental business optimization isn't enough. It's not resilient, it's not flexible, and it's not scalable enough, nor does it allow for the speed of response that we have to drive. And we're going to see that continue to accelerate over the next few years. On top of the ongoing risks, companies are facing new market challenges, new market disruptions from sustainability. That's just on the horizon ahead of us. They need products and business processes that are more sustainable, or potentially face financial ramifications. There are a lot of risks of not doing anything in response to this. This is the kind of disruptive driver, though, that can really create significant game-changing opportunities for companies to transform their business. The good news is that in tandem with market risks and disruptions, technology's matured quickly. Just look at AI in the last year. Technology acceleration is moving at an incredible pace. Advanced simulation, digital twins of all kinds, and AI are all enabling businesses to change, and change quickly. Instead of tactically responding to ongoing risks, leading companies are evaluating how, by adopting advanced technology, they can transform their business to put them in a market leadership position. So let's dig a little deeper into each of these drivers and look at how companies are transforming their business in response. So remember that first risk driver I talked about, responding to market uncertainties and Certainly there's a lot of those. The market uncertainty due to geopolitical instability, as we've heard, and inflation, it's not going to disappear soon. And according to a September article from McKinsey, where they were looking at the economic conditions outlook during turbulent times, they saw that that's just going to continue, just reaffirming what we heard from Peter this morning. And while for the second quarter in a row there was some good news, survey respondents indicated that they had more positive sentiment in terms of global growth. On the negative side, there was sentiment from regions around the world for different reasons. Inflation, North America, Europe, some of the emerging countries, those are definitely issues. The economy of China, we've heard how that's going to be very challenging for us over the next few years. The impact of domestic political and geopolitical conflicts on many countries like India are some of the top issues that they referenced. So we've got a lot of challenges facing us over the next few years. The IMF didn't actually convey a lot of good news either. Global economic growth is slowing slightly, while costs like oil continue to increase, although not for us. And while increasing inflation, energy costs, and material proliferation, material prices, and a slower global economy, companies are realizing that the proliferation of initiatives to optimize their business to meet profitability goals is yielding fewer and fewer results, and are assessing if transformation should replace optimization. Couldn't digital models and twins improve efficiency and productivity to help support companies' transformation? Absolutely. There are so many things that we can do. And Peter talked about the factories in the US that he mentioned, where automation is driving significant outcomes. Companies like Flex are really taking the bull by the horns, and they're really moving forward on capitalizing on business transformation to help drive their business. For those of you that don't know Flex, they're a $30 billion contract manufacturer that services just about every industry that you can imagine. Automotive, medical, home appliances, telecom are just a few. And they manage over 1 million different parts. And they not only manufacture internally, but they purchase from over 16,000 suppliers. To complicate matters, they have grown by acquisition. And so their global operations include manufacturing facilities from many different consolidations of acquisition. And I was just talking to Mike last night. They just finished more, right? So that's not a strategy that's going to stop. So this complexity made consistently quoting new orders incredibly challenging. Their quoting process for mechanical parts was challenging and time-consuming due to all of the different individuals quoting, the different ways that they did it. It was very manual. And so what they did was using aPriori, they transformed their quoting process for mechanical parts from a manual process that varied from site to site through all those acquisitions to a globally consistent simulation-driven process leveraging digital twins and digital factories to generate a BOM in minutes instead of days. So what was the impact of this process transformation on their business? They reduced their time to quote by a minimum of 35%. And in some cases, it was 75 to 80%, which accelerated response times to their customers. But not only did it help them with better interactions with their customers, they were able to increase their win rate from an industry average 15 to 20% response for quotes to winning 68%, a huge impact on their business. And that was by creating clarity and consistency of quoting using aPriori. So as you can see, tactics like improving efficiency and productivity can have a direct positive impact on business. Where else are companies achieving outcomes through business transformation? Well, Signify, and Signify is here as well. So if you want to talk to Arnold, he's got some great perspectives on how they're transforming their whole procurement function. They are the leader in lighting for consumers, professionals, and the Internet of Things. Their innovative solutions have not only resulted in over 2 billion LEDs being sold, but those 2 billion LEDs have saved the equivalent carbon emissions of 23 million cars. Huge impact. They've been engaged in an intensive digitalization program for several years. Their goal is to use state-of-the-art tools, processes, and experts to transform the role of procurement toward more focus on supplier innovation, cost efficiency, and sustainability, with a high degree of focus on automation. And you're going to hear that theme through the whole conference. Automation is going to be core to everything that we do going forward to drive faster outcomes. By doing that shift in their digitalization efforts, procurement has moved from a support function at Signify to a vital strategic hub connecting finance, engineering, R&D, and the supply chain. So really bringing it all together to work cohesively. For Signify, digital automation leveraging aPriori has unlocked the potential to do a lot more should costing calculations, and through that to challenge more bids. In the past, they were using Excel on demand, manual process with everyone using their own method. And using automation, they enabled a single standardized methodology across the organization. Now they used to be able to quote about 1,000 parts a year across their whole team. With automation, that's gone up to over 10,000 parts a year that they're able to assess and really evaluate. So really magnifying procurement's impact on the business. So let's move on to risk driver 2. Complementing procurement transformation is building resilient, flexible supply chains. And we know that from COVID. Supply chains have been battered and derailed since 2019 when the pandemic began. As product brands retool their supply base for resiliency, they're also navigating the additional uncertainty from wars, inflation, trade disputes. So it's not surprising that 84% of CFOs say that supply chain disruption is their biggest business risk. It's huge. And as Peter mentioned as well, when we didn't line up our stories this morning, but it's amazing the overlap, reshoring is front of mind for many companies to try to start to address and build more resilient supply chain strategies. And according to Kearney's 10th annual reshoring strategy, that's the #1 tactic that many companies are using to mitigate the supply chain risk. 96% of CEOs are evaluating reshoring, have already reshored their operations, or are considering what they need to do to change how they're established. That's an increase of 18% in just 1 year. But until recently, one of the biggest challenges holding back reshoring was the availability of skilled, reasonably priced labor. Fortunately, affordable automation is really helping companies to be able to overcome that challenge. So reshoring is becoming a real opportunity. And in talking with a number of you over the last couple of months, we're seeing a lot of reshoring strategies going to regional. Companies moving to Mexico from China to service the Americas, moving to Eastern Europe to service the Pan-European region, moving to Malaysia to service Asia-Pac. This is something that we see many of you already having underway. So to recast and transform supply chain strategies, companies really have to evaluate options carefully. It's tough to predict where the costs of these options may be. Labor costs might be higher in one region, but automation might reduce the costs. Moving to a region where you've got lower transportation costs will certainly help. But what other costs might go up as a result of moving to that region? Working with many of you, we've also seen that doing this kind of assessment is very complicated. It's multifaceted analysis to determine which option might be the most valuable. That's where digital factories can really come in, playing a cornerstone to agile, resilient supply chains, whether they're used to create scenarios to determine how to manufacture cost effectively, or to collaborate with suppliers to drive the best manufacturing outcome. Digital factories and digital simulations really make it possible. Solar turbines is a great case in point. They're really leveraging digital factories very effectively. For those of you who don't know solar, they're a wholly owned subsidiary of Caterpillar that designs and manufactures industrial gas turbines, electric motors, gas compressors, and a whole lot more. And they take a very unique approach to supporting their successful suppliers. It's not a black box, negotiation where you're butting heads. By leveraging the right technology and collaborating in cost reduction discussions with suppliers, they've helped to pinpoint savings opportunities that they can both benefit from. And that helps CAT to achieve a fair price, But on the other side, it really helps the supplier maintain a fair margin because they need the suppliers to stay in business, just like all of us do. To achieve this, what they're doing is they're using aPriori's digital factories to simulate manufacturing and generate should-cost models for components. These digital factories can be updated in minutes, enabling them to do iterative reviews between cost management, design engineering, sourcing, and supply teams to provide value-added insights for subsequent supplier negotiations. This approach has really enabled significant outcomes, and I can't go through them all, but I'll highlight just a couple here. In one case, by looking at the part themselves, they were able to quickly look at alternative materials and reduce the cost by 15% right out of the gate. In another case, they were working with a supplier, and they actually took the manufacturing data into the discussion, and they walked through the routings and what was happening at each step, and they identified there was a lot of grinding that was in the process that they really didn't need. And so by collaborating with the supplier, they were able to reduce that, and as a result of that, reduce the part cost by $450 a part. Again, just by sharing how you're going to make it and what's aPriori suggesting, they were able to identify these opportunities. So using this approach, using digital factories, they've been able to use material utilization, cycle times, labor rates, material costs, overhead, all of these, machine selection, and more, to really drive transparency and help set the tone for a different caliber of supplier collaborations. Let me go on to another one, Eaton. Many of you know Eaton. They're going to be here today. They're a $20+ billion power management company. The history of the company goes back over 100 years, but it's in the last 20 to 25 years that the company's really undergone a dramatic transformation. They now play a major role in the electrical sector, as well as in the industrial sector, which includes aerospace, hydraulics, and vehicle e-mobility. So really broad portfolio. They viewed that embracing new business models was a must to improve time to market and increase profitability. And to do that, they embarked on a digital transformation journey. They've been using aPriori since 2017 to streamline cost engineering and should costing, leveraging digital factory and simulation tools to help them scale their manufacturing. The cloud made it a lot easier for them to access the data and collaborate virtually quickly, but still very effectively. And they identified that aPriori helped to increase the digital mindset of the supply chain. It helped them to really understand a much deeper level of understanding for the design of the products, how they were going to be manufactured, and the processes involved in making them. So it really up-leveled that whole scope of education to help them understand a much more broad perspective on the products they were bringing to market. And Eaton determined that by having a tool like aPriori, it allowed design and sourcing teams to say, hey, I have this part. I think there may be a better way to manufacture it. And instead of having to redesign the component, send it out to RFQ, wait for a response back from the suppliers, they made small changes to their digital simulations to skip that whole process and really accelerate getting that product to market. Eaton's concluded that digital manufacturing is enabling them to dramatically accelerate their overall business productivity. So, third risk, labor shortage, right? And as we can see, that's not getting better anytime soon. According to Forbes, as of June, if you look at just specifically our segment of the world, manufacturing, there's a shortage of almost 600,000 stable US manufacturing jobs waiting to be filled in the US, right, this year. The bad news is that by 2030, it's expected to be 2.1 million. How are we going to get things done without the people we need to get there? And across Europe, we're hearing the same things. Almost 70% of employers are reporting that problems in hiring, and they perceive it as a major issue. With many experienced older employees now retiring, labor shortages have become a really pressing issue. And it's directly impacting productivity as well as being a bottleneck to growth. How can you grow if you can't get products out the door? So companies are looking for additional strategies to complement the recruiting efforts to solve the problem. Investing in technologies can help mitigate labor shortages and transform business processes. In the short term, it can boost productivity and reduce manual labor by eliminating those manual tasks that we're dealing with day in and day out. This strategy enables employees to constantly improve and concentrate on more strategic duties. And that's what's going to attract people to the jobs that we need. So giving them the more strategic things to do that will help them improve and maximize productivity with the limited resources that we're able to bring into the organizations. Digital transformation can enable faster collaboration and drive product price performance while really optimizing the design cycle. So as we look at this, companies like Woodward are really doing just what I talked about, leveraging technologies to address labor shortages and digitally transform key business processes. They did some amazing things. Woodward is a designer of and manufacturer and service provider of energy conversion and control solutions. And they've been servicing the aerospace and industrial markets for a number of years. To support their continuous innovation, they manage a very complex global supply chain to bring their products to market. So they were already facing shortages in their labor base, in their supply base. And they recognized that with 75% of US machinists at age 45 or older, they needed a new approach to manufacturing to stay competitive. To respond, they developed a digital transformation strategy that was centered on 3 pillars. And for those of you who were with us the last couple of years, you heard from Woodward. The first leg was cobots, robots that can support human labor to drive processes. The second is sourcing from emerging countries. And the third, using simulated manufacturing in a digital factory. They were able to improve supplier collaboration and bring down labor requirements for purchased parts. So that was critical because their digital strategy called for an increased velocity in product development and production while it's still achieving high quality and lower overall cost. That's a lot to try to ask for. So how did they do it? Woodward digitally partnered with key suppliers. They identified some key suppliers that were going to help them move the strategy forward. And they developed digital factories that represented the suppliers' capabilities, their capacity, and their cost structures. And that digital collaboration had benefits for both Woodward and for their supply base. It enabled Woodward to reduce their quota turnaround time to 1/10 of what it was, so much faster. And it reduced the load on Woodward sourcing teams because instead of having to work with multiple suppliers, 3 or more, responding to their questions, negotiating, all the back and forth, they were able to focus on the key suppliers that were most likely to be able to deliver on what they needed to get done. So for suppliers, it was equally beneficial, though. We heard one example from Woodward where one of their suppliers had a team of 5 on their quoting desk. By going through this process and creating digital factories, they were able to take 4 of those quoters off the quoting desk and have 1 guy for 3 hours a week. That was it. The other 4 guys they put back on the plant floor, enabling them to drive more production, which was beneficial for the supplier as well as for Woodward. So it was a win-win on both sides. This is a great example of how digital transformation can help address critical issues like labor shortages. So that's enough on market risks that are driving companies to change. What about market disruption? How can they help drive change? Well, sustainability is changing the game for many companies, driven by the regulatory requirements that we see coming down and changes in consumer behavior. So if you look at Corporate Sustainability Directive, CSRD, starting in 2024, almost 50,000 companies are subject to mandatory sustainability reporting, including non-EU companies and companies that have subsidiaries that are regulated by the exchanges there. And the required data that's going to be reported is much more rigorous in scope and depth of disclosure requirements than the current non-financial reporting directive, which is a lot. So they're going to be requiring companies to disclose hundreds of metrics and targets. 50,000 companies are going to be impacted by that. Secondly, there's a new regulation that could impact the prices of products, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM, all these new acronyms that we have to contend with. That's a tool the goal is to put a fair price on the carbon emitted during the production of carbon-intensive goods that are entering the EU to encourage cleaner industrial production, not only in the EU, but in non-EU countries. This will start to be phased in for select imports in 2023. So we're going to start to see this coming in, and then phased in over time. So experts are projecting that over time, the tariffs could increase some material cost by as much as 30%. Huge impact. And that's going to impact business margins and product competitiveness. So how do we respond to that? Bookending that is that sustainability is also driving consumer behavior changes. So it's not just impacting companies through government regulations, but also through consumer buying patterns. In a February PwC study, 80% of respondents said they would be willing to pay 5% more for sustainably produced goods. Sustainability is a tough challenge. You can clearly see between the regulatory requirements, product competitiveness changing, consumer behavior changing. It's going to be very challenging for companies doing things the way that they are to compete in the new world of sustainability. So as a result of all of these challenges being introduced, manufacturers are scrambling to address the sustainability requirements. How are they doing that? Well, manufacturers are looking for technology to help, and many are already leveraging LCA tools, the life cycle assessment tools. And these can be very useful because their ability to consolidate and report on sustainability data when the product design is complete gives them a complete view. But the problem is that doesn't provide proactive, actionable insights into how to reduce the carbon impact of the product design or the manufacturing decisions. So how do you get that kind of guidance? Digital twins with digital manufacturing simulation can really help executives make the best decision to optimize product competitiveness in line with CO2 and achieve their manufacturing goals at the same time. So while responding to sustainability goals is a challenge for some companies, others are using it to really transform their business processes and make it a competitive advantage. Tristan from Carrier, I'm sure will talk about this in his case study, but they're a great example. They're a $22 billion manufacturer offering products in 3 major market segments: residential and commercial HVAC, refrigeration, and fire and security. And over the past few years, Carrier has successfully been using aPriori across design and value engineering, enable them to implement a common cost modeling methodology that's resulted in saving, that's identified over $21 million in potential value, so a big number. What they're doing now, though, is in addition to optimizing costs, they have a significant ESG goal that they have to achieve, to reduce their customers' carbon footprint by more than 1 gigaton in carbon emissions by 2030. Huge goal. The challenge that they faced, though, was that they needed to get the data from their suppliers. That was the only way that they could calculate it. The problem was, most of the time, suppliers didn't want to provide it. So how do you get it? By being able to access cost, CO2, and manufacturability data through aPriori, they're able to make informed decisions about the product design, material, and manufacturing options, and accelerate time to market on top of that for sustainable innovations. Although it's early days, by leveraging our new sustainability capabilities, Carrier's been able to streamline their environmental product declarations to under 12 months, a significant step forward, and to be able to respond to these dynamic changes. So we've talked about risk drivers and the disruption drivers from sustainability that are motivating companies to transform. But enabling drivers like advanced simulation and digital twins of all kinds can support and accelerate digital transformation. And I just talked through examples of this. By leveraging digital twin and digital transformation, Flex, Eaton, Carrier, Signify, Woodward, and Solar, all of these companies identified focused strategic initiatives that do digitally transform their business processes and positively impact their business. So while these are just a few examples of how digital transformation has created positive outcomes, you don't just need to hear it from us. Deloitte analyzed 10 years of financial disclosures from more than 4,000 organizations. And they found that companies adopting digital transformation technologies increased their productivity, their position in the market, and their market value. So just like in the examples we talked about, Deloitte identified that there were 3 critical things that they saw where digital transformation was successful. One is that digital transformation need to be aligned to a corporate digital strategy. So you need both of those. And thirdly, they needed to be supported by the organization's ability to adapt and adopt new processes across their organization. And by doing those 3 things, it can have very powerful results. They saw the results reflected in market cap increases. So it can impact the company both inside and externally. So why are we a key partner to help achieve these digital transformation results? Because of our Manufacturing Insights platform, an end-to-end manufacturing digital twin. So as you look at this, we've been working on this for several years now, for those of you who haven't been with us as long. This is something that we undertook going back 7 or 8 years ago. Now, we complement the innovative digital products that you've developed through your CAD and PLM systems by completing the picture of what happens after the design is complete, meaning how you build your products. So we leverage the work your teams have done modeling your products and creating product digital twins, and we build on it. We thread it together with our digital processes and factories, and by doing so, unlock critical insights that weren't previously available across the product lifecycle. Manufacturing companies are leveraging aPriori's insights like cost, manufacturability, manufacturing process details, and carbon impact to provide shared views of the data across the organization, helping to break down functional silos, enabling companies to do more with the same resources, and accelerating time to market concurrently. Now, clearly, CAD, PLM, and digital manufacturing are 3 important complementary technologies that are underpinning digital transformations, and that's why our partnership with PTC makes a lot of sense. PTC provides the CAD technology to create the digital twin and the backbone through PLM to manage it. And we complement this with our digital manufacturing and sustainability. Through our integration with Creo and Windchill, customers can automate workflows, integrate design processes, and be alerted on overruns, on cost, manufacturability, or their carbon goals, enabling our joint customers to achieve their cost goals, make their products more sustainable, and achieve faster time to market. I'm very pleased to announce this morning that for the 2nd year in a row, and this is hot off the press, we're very honored that our Manufacturing Insights platform was awarded Frost & Sullivan's Best Practices Product Leadership Award in Global Manufacturing Solutions. They cited that we design best-in-class products, bring those to market to provide end-to-end value. But in addition, they highlighted that by adding CO2 emissions data, we provide the only standalone intelligence platform for manufacturers to optimize products for cost, manufacturability, and sustainability simultaneously. And that is indeed our goal, to create value by supporting users' needs across the product development cycle. Starting with suppliers who are looking to quote faster but quote accurately, respond to more RFQs with the same resources, and win more business, like Flex. In R&D, being able to assess early concepts to set the design team on the right path going forward. Supporting detailed design by helping engineers understand whether they're going to achieve their cost targets, their manufacturability goals, mitigating manufacturability issues before manufacturing, and deliver more sustainable products by understanding the carbon impact of their design during the design process, before it's all locked in. For sourcing teams, whether it's supporting fact-based negotiation like Solar Turbines collaborating with suppliers around manufacturing approaches to reach a mutually fair cost, or like Woodward, Alstom, and Carrier moving to quoteless sourcing with zero RFQ, it's really helping accelerate time to market. For manufacturing organizations, we help with time standard development, capital asset justification with our tooling costs, and we help evaluate make versus buy discussions. And in addition to that, we support the quoting process by enabling their manufacturing teams. And lastly, but certainly not least, helping value engineering teams make products on the market more cost-effective and more sustainable. I've shown you a few examples of how it's possible to create significant value by leveraging your digital twins with digital manufacturing insights to transform your business. But there's much more to come. So over the next 2 days, we're really pleased to be joined by 8 of our great outstanding customers: Boeing, GE Appliances, Carrier, Eaton, Dover, TE Connectivity, Signify, and iRobot. They're going to share their journey with you as to how they're transforming their businesses. In addition to that, to help you accomplish your goals, we've developed 28 sessions, 28 presentations focused on 4 tracks: improving profitability, achieving sustainability, and reducing risks. And in addition to that, there's a track for experts to help you really advance your skills. I hope you're going to find these sessions valuable as you consider how to transform your business over the next 12 to 24 months.